All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another live stream, but this time we got
Hi.
Rodolfo. Say hi, Rodolfo.
What's up? What's
How
up,
you doing?
everyone? How you guys doing?
Hey. So this is gonna be a fun stream because if you guys remember the ZBrush Summit, we were talking about frogs and rocks. That
Right.
was that was the theme, right? That was the whole thing.
That was the whole theme. Yeah. That was
Yeah.
the whole point.
That's
No,
the
it
whole
wasn't.
point.
But you know.
Absolutely. So due to that, Rodolfo and I put our heads together and we thought we'd do a collaboration piece where we're going to be sculpting frogs and rocks. But the type of frog that we're going to be sculpting, um, well, you guys will have to just figure it out. I think it'll be fun. As we put this together, you guys will be like, what is he doing? That's so crazy. So we won't reveal because we literally just came up with this idea like an hour before the stream. We knew it was gonna be frogs, we knew it was gonna be rocks, but we were like, how do we want to put this together? And actually, Rodolfo had a great idea. So that all being said, as we go, you guys can guess what we're doing. I think it'll become obvious if they watch my screen more so than your screen.
Yeah. Well, mine is, I'm the rock guy.
Yep.
So, you know, well,
Yeah.
guess what I'm making?
Exactly. But it'll be cool as you put together the scene. It'll be cool to
Right.
see, like, if they can figure it out. So anyway, so this will be exciting. So thank you all for being here. Also, too, this is just kind of a mess around and find out stream. We're just going to be sculpting, having a good time. You guys
Yep.
can always ask questions, just like in any stream. If you guys do have ZBrush questions, please feel free to ask because one of us will go off on a tangent for the next 40 minutes about how
Yep.
to, use ZBrush. That's how this works. So
Yep.
be prepared. We got our coffees, we got our waters. We're here, and yeah. So
I was just looking for an excuse to sculpt rocks, man.
well, I'm here to help you with that, and so is the chat.
There we go.
So that all being
Frogs and rocks. That's
frogs
it.
and
I
rocks.
see that in the chat.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
All right, let's do. Also, this is what I love about StreamYard because we could just be like rocks. Be like, yo, what's happening, man? Amen. The painted dragon. What's going on? Hello. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, this is going to be super exciting. So we're going to go ahead and switch our screens on over to ZBrush. And as you can see, most of us start from a sphere. So that's how we do it.
Right. What?
So yeah, let's
There
go
we
ahead
go.
and get into. Oh, look
Well,
at you.
I'm
Okay.
cheating.
What
I'm that
the heck?
fast. I'm just that fast. I'm sorry.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
that. I
Calm
just
down,
click the
buddy.
button and there you go.
So to
No,
get this party started, I do have a question for the chat, which is what kind of like what's your favorite frog? Like type in the chat what your favorite frog is, et cetera, et cetera. Really curious to see. I am curious. All right.
let's see. So yeah, well, this is cheating. So I'm obviously going to start from scratch. This is obviously
Yeah.
just
What
block
the
out
heck?
anyway. Well, I was just blocking out some stuff, seeing how rusty my rock skills are. But right before a stream, and I was experimenting with multiple techniques, including the project primitive deformer, which is something that I feel like gets underused a lot. Not a lot of people know about this, and I was trying to experiment with something like that.
Well, that's
So,
fair. Yeah, absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
let's start from scratch then. Okay, there we go.
Yep.
Let's see.
I'm just going to be finding the rib cage because that is like the one thing when I just do a lot of crazy, like, sketch sculpting. I usually start with some sort of rib cage or something like that just to find the base of it. I don't necessarily try to go too crazy.
Let's build this and make it stylized. There we go. Let's match your style today.
Ooh.
Well,
What is my
not
style?
1-to-1. Come on, I just mean stylized stuff. I don't usually do that much stylized stuff. It's gonna be
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Well, my
it's your
style.
stream though, so it's in your slot.
It is. Yeah. Well, I would I would say if I had to define my style is more of I just bash crap together until I like it. And then I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that works. That's what I do.
Well,
So let's see
sometimes,
here.
yeah, that's how I work too. I guess that's a thing for most artists anyway, mashing stuff together.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Let's just go, okay, brush, moving. Like that.
Okay. I think it's appropriate to say that's a lot of styles, yeah. All right, let's turn on local symmetry so we can get some length to these legs. There we go. Actually, let's rotate this. Frogging. Nice. Nice. Yes, actually. Okay, so there's a question here. Frogs are cool, but have you ever done an axolotl? Yes, actually, I have. So my first year at Maxon, we actually built, me and Ellie Wade, who does Redshift rendering. If you don't know Ellie, she's super awesome. And then my colleague Chad Perkins, who also is in like the Red Giant team. And then we had a guest artist, Anna Carolina. If you guys don't know any of those names, definitely look them up because they're super sick. But anyway, yeah, that was one of the first things that actually we had done. We did a little game level, and it was a axolotl kind of like Star-Lord character. Let me see if I can find it real quick, actually, because that would be pretty dope. We actually showcased it at NAB, and so it'll be a fun little reference. Let me see if I can find it. NAB 2023. And it was cool because like we just were like, let's make a a game level for NAB, and it was
Not
fun because we had a lot of
ambitious at all.
people coming over and checking out stuff. It was pretty awesome. Oh, here, let's see. I think she called it Building Worlds.
Wasn't that my segment on when I was doing ZBrush Live?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so here I can just bring this over to the screen here. So this was the kind of axolotl character that's I had done. So we had so it's me coming through here, and this was the kind of character that we had built, and then sent it into Substance Painter, et cetera, et cetera. So let's see, let me see if I show the final result. I was posing it inside of ZBrush. But anyway, it was this kind of like character that we did, and it ended up being part of let's see if I could find it. Carolina ended up being part of another project. Yeah, here we go. So this was the idea of it, and I think she shows it playing at the end. But this was the idea of the game. Here you go. She ended up having fun posing it too, which is cool. But yeah, so if you guys want to check this out, I'll put it in the chat, and you guys can check that out, which is pretty cool. This was 2023, so almost 3 years ago now. Crazy.
Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, wild to think about. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and split off. And real quick, if you guys thought, here's your random quick tip of the day. I'm just going to go full screen just for you guys. But here, random quick tip of the day, which is here. If you guys have meshes that you're putting out together, you guys are like blocking out stuff here, and you don't necessarily always need, you need to separate these two pieces here, but you don't want to go to poly groups, auto groups. Just Control Shift drag and select the meshes that you want, then just hit Control Shift A, and then that will auto group that for you, and then you can mask off and invert, and then you can have something there. So just a really quick tip for anybody who's like blocking stuff out and is usually going to like some sort of is going into poly group, auto group all the time. You don't have to do that. That's just an easy way to do this.
Trying to find a shape that I like with the project primitive.
Let's just get these feet in here.
Different. Let's try this.
So we're going super crazy block out on this. Yeah, how you doing on your shapes, buddy?
I'm trying to see if I can find a project primitive shape that I like. And then
Mhm.
once I have that, I'm just going to basically do a bunch of these using project primitive just to get a rough design
Mhm.
in there. And then eventually Dynamesh, and there's sculpting brushes for that,
Nice.
obviously. So yeah, project primitive is like the deformer, in case you guys don't know, because I don't see this used a lot when you scroll down YouTube, and it's a shame because it's super powerful. It's kind of like, how do you explain that? Is that it's kind of like imagine like procedural NURBS based modeling tool, but is as flexible as ZBrush is, and it has taken steroids for the last 20 years, and that's it, right? And then it's actually polygonal modeling, so it's not really, NURBS or whatever. I don't know how to explain it. It's just it has a lot of stuff going on, like you have a lot of flexibility, and it's super powerful, and I just love it. But and
I think
actually
that's
it's one that I don't use this until I get to like a like the block out is done, and then I start thinking about the flow of the shapes. But I don't know. Today I just felt like I should. I just
no,
do that.
I think that's good, man.
Rotate it.
I like that. I like that. It's just on steroids.
Yeah, imagine something like that. Getting like a shape like that. Accept. Get a new one. And rotate it back like that. And again, this works in negative, so meaning that if I pop it off like that, I'm just subtracting to that shape, which is super cool. So I'm going to try to maybe over here in the opacity, make it 100% opaque. And then the blend, I want this to actually cut the geometry like that. It's not cutting, it's more like clipping than anything else. But and then you can tweak this to make a cut. Like that. Rotate it like that. And like that. Again, just the base. So then we can start carving this in with actual brushes. Let's see if I get a different shape here. Maybe this primitive. Maybe this primitive ain't the most best for this. Let's see. Actually, that could work. Boom.
Nice, nice. There you go. Ooh, I like how you're doing that, man. That's
What?
super cool. I like how you're doing that. It's super
Yeah, I
cool.
mean, it's confusing if you haven't never used project primitives, and I'm assuming a lot of people in the chat haven't, because again, I don't see this being used that often. But because there's a lot of cones, a lot of settings, and like a lot of stuff going on. But once you know what these do, what each of these do, it's like limitless. I could spend the whole day just figuring out shapes with this, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes, again, this works when you're trying to find like specific patterns. So I'm like, okay, I have this shape, and I like how this shape is set. So I can do stuff like this, for example, and then just rotate it around, push it up like that. I don't know. And then click accept, and then just move it down a little bit and push it back like that. Rotate it, push it back, and it's still the same shape per se, right?
Mhm.
Well, okay, this is giving me some issues there, but I guess it's because of this. Right. You still have the same shape language, let's say, and it's just cutting away at your mesh. Now be careful with this because we don't want to cut it too much because otherwise we're going to start thinning it out.
Mhm.
But again, once you're done, we can just go over here, pick a resolution, because again, this is sort of like it's tessellating. So I can even increase that tessellation over here. Tessellate that. There we go. And now drag that resolution slider from Dynamesh and Control W, Dynamesh. Boom. And now there we go.
Nice, man. Looks sick.
Start actually sculpting and moving these shapes into place. So again, obviously we're not going to finish on a single stream, but I would love to get close, like very, very close.
I think we can get pretty close.
Well, I don't know.
Or we can at least, we'll at least have the idea down.
Yeah.
So
using the clip curve brush a lot for this. And again, for rocks, I use a lot of the brushes that are in the light box, not the ones that, that are in the presets, which means they're already loaded when you open up ZBrush, but you have to go through the light box to actually pick them up, like these, like the plain line cut, the trim front, it's also there, trim hole, flatten brushes as well. So there's a lot of stuff here that is super, super useful for hard surface. Actually, it's more of a hard surface thing, because if you think about rocks are hard surface. Well, that's the tricky thing. They're hard surface, but the design and the shape is organic, right?
Do you know what they call that though? It's inorganic.
Inorganic. Oh,
inorganic shapes. Yeah, like chairs are like that. Like it was interesting working with furniture companies a few times. Like they always call their like chairs, like anytime it's like not something rigid, but it's like with flow, and they call it inorganic. So I would classify rocks as possibly inorganic shapes, because it's like, you're right, like they're very sharp, jagged edges and plane changes, but then they have like they have a type of anatomy, an organic anatomy that happens through nature.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's the tricky part usually, because you have to have you either have some reference for that language, because again, you can't really copy a rock like that's, well, you can, but well, good luck. Like copy, and by copying I mean like doing a likeness of a rock. You can do that. It's going to take you forever, definitely more than a stream, a 2-hour stream. But and what most people, for example, game studios do nowadays is they just scan it, right? They scan, if they want a likeness of a particular rock, they scan that rock, and then they treat the mesh and make it game ready, and they just use that and bake it, texture it however they want. But they have at least the shape design like to a T, because it's photogrammetry, right? So when it comes to like actually looking at references for rocks, I'm more trying to figure out the language of what I'm looking at. So you can see, for example, in my reference here, these are very different languages over here. You see that? Even though this is obviously bigger, this is a cliffside, but the actual, like if you look at each one of these boulders here, like the individual cracks and stuff, they're not the same as this, right? This is more of an S curve kind of thing, kind of design. You know what I mean? Like this sort of nature flow that's kind of chaotic is different in every type of rock formation. It depends where it's from. Is it sandstone? Is it granite? Is it marble? Is it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's obviously like how big it is. Like if it's marble, let's say if it's granite, but it's a small pebble, then it's super soft, let's say, right? But if it's a huge chunk of granite, it's going to be super noisy. And there's going to be a lot of like jagged edges, but not super jagged in granite. And if it's like, I don't know, Icelandic rocks or something like you find in Scandinavia or something, that it's going to be super jagged, like incredibly jagged, like this, something like this, that you see here. So, but this is more, you can see it's still jagged, but the language, again, it's very different than this. See that? I mean, this part is a little similar, but you know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean, Jelly.
two cliff sides, very different design and language. And this is Dragon Ball, so this doesn't count.
Definitely.
Well, it does. It does count. Here's the thing, right? But because
Yeah.
even if you're stylizing something, the language has to be there, right?
Right.
The language of nature still has to be there. And that's the tricky part.
Ooh. Here, let's see something. We got a comment here. Let me see something. I just dropped my pen, but let's see. Yeah, dude, we'll react to this. Absolutely. ZBrush Central is called time check. Would mean a lot to me. Let me look it up real fast. I will bam, look it up. And let me just go here and let's go time check. That might be a little recent. Let me see here. Well, this is ZBrush Central. For anybody who doesn't know, ZBrush Central is quite amazing. Did you put it up recently, Sandman? So this is where you can post all sorts of different works, guys. And it's 100% free to have this account. And this is all ZBrush work. You're not going to get any other type of work in here. It's all ZBrush work. It's all high-end work too, which is fantastic. Oh, wait, I think I see it. It's this one right here, right? Time check. Boom.
Ah, there it is.
Nice.
There it is.
That's solid. That's solid. That's cool. That's cool. I really like that. That's a cool concept. Absolutely.
Whoops.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. This is really cool. Nice. Awesome. 100%. Yeah, this is super dope. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Loved it. Awesome.
I love that
Great
piece.
job.
Time check.
Time check. That's so cool. All right, I dropped my pen because I'm butterfingers. There we go. Got it. Got it. All right. So real quick too, this is like, just because we're talking about tips and stuff like that. Something that I tend to sometimes focus on a lot when I'm doing any type of block out is to literally just focus on getting something made and getting the shape language there, but not necessarily worried about if it's correct in the beginning. And that is because I want to just get the vibe of the actual, of the character itself. Because sometimes you can get too locked into making it quote right, and that's kind of annoying. I usually don't like that. So when I took traditional sculpture class, they actually were very much a part of you're more designing. You're a designer and an engineer when you're putting clay on, and then you're a sculptor when you're removing clay, because sculpting is the act of removing. So to kind of keep it in that kind of context, it's like, yeah, I just kind of get something that's close enough to what I'm looking for. And then from there, then I worry about, then I'll worry about whether or not it makes sense. I just kind of get it on paper first. You can always change things, but if you keep it loose and keep it low poly, then you can move the silhouette around as long as you need it to. And then you can always change stuff after the fact. So that's what's going on here.
One of the things I hate about sculpting rocks is that it looks like a freaking blob of nothing up until like the second phase, when you start actually carving in your secondary forms. Like when you're looking at the primary shape, like over here, it looks like I don't know, like a phalange or something. I don't know. Go weird. So trying to, and then when I do this, for example, when I'm pulling back the design into like its primary form, just polishing it up, removing the noise, the visual noise, just to focus in on what's essential, then that is exactly when it looks like a freaking blob of nothing. And that's also when you know you're in the right track.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't have a lot of detail, especially in the in the beginning stage of any
100%, dude.
sculpt.
Hey, Zachary, what's happening, dude? How you doing? We're doing good. We're doing good. We are doing stuff and things. Stuff
Hey,
and things. Very very loosey right now with everything.
loosey goosey.
Okay. So we have a loose block out of. Okay, so here's a cool thing too. This is something that I rely on all the time because it's eyes. So if you come up to the macro tab at the top, there's a spot called append eyes. Just this little guy. By clicking this, it just brings in eyes. It makes them black, but it automatically puts on the toy shader or the toy material, and then you can just kind of scale that and put that wherever you need it. And what's cool about frogs is at least some of the frogs that I looked at, which is pretty neat. So if we were to kind of take a look at some frog anatomy for a second, here you go. Frogs have black eyes. Some frogs do, but then they also have like some nice little eyelids and stuff like that above them. And so it's pretty cool when you're taking a look at frogs to kind of take a look at their eyes for a bit. So this was where it's like, it's really cool because they have black eyes. So automatically I just go ahead and this is perfect. It gives me the color I need. Everything is copacetic. So it's super nice. So I can just kind of place that there, and it's relatively a decent size, which is nice. So just a nice little thing. There you go. And if you wanted to make it white, it's really easy to just fill the color, turn it white, and you just got that toy material. All right, there we go. Done. I'm gonna ship it. All right, that good? That good?
Looks awesome, man. That's
Yeah, we're done.
best
All right,
render.
that's it. That's it, guys.
Best render.
Uh, all right, and really quickly too, just because the tips just keep coming here. So I duplicated the eyelids or the eyes to make them eyelids, so I can just do the blackout. So I Control Shift D, which will duplicate your object at any point in time. So here, whatever object you have, Control Shift D. This also works for foldering. So that's I rely on that shortcut all the time. But then here, if you, let's say for whatever reason, you have a different material selected and you forgot what a specific material is. In this case here, let's make this body. So we're gonna alt click this. I'm just gonna go ahead and make this, just gonna make it silver for now for the demonstration. There you go. And let's pick a different material. So let's say you forgot what material this was. You're not sure. Instead of trying to go and find it, just go ahead and click on that material and drag over to your material that's on your subtool and just hover and you can pick it. So here it's recognizing the toy plastic and here it's recognizing the silver. So at any point in time, you can change that. So if I wasn't sure what material to make it, then you can just easily pick and then you're good to go. So that's just something to kind of remember. It's really nice. So that being said, you can easily just pick your stuff real fast. But now we can just come up here and then make that its normal material. And then we can also turn around and we can do the same thing with the color too. We can go ahead to the picker and just pick the same color if we're not sure what it is. In this case, it is white, so it's fine. And let's just go up to the RGB. Boom. Here we go. And now here we're just gonna blow up these eyes here, and then real fast, because again, we're just all about stuff and things. If you press and hold Control, boop, and then you pick one of these scale axes, like this one here on the red, then you can easily start clipping in that direction. So you can get something that looks like that. Makes it really easy to then position how you want to have his eyelids. So instead of always cutting and stuff, it's just Control and you can clip. And you can do both sides. So if you go one direction, not the band. So if you go in one direction,
I was gonna say that.
go this way. And then if I go the other way, it's going to clip the other side. So, and that works for all of them. So there you go. I couldn't resist. I couldn't help myself. It's a poor dad joke. Oh, Oh, we got a fun question here. So I'm a beginner and I want to start with ZBrush. I'm thinking about buying an XP pen, Pro Medium or Wacom. What do you recommend? What do you guys use? Honestly, I will say this: it is completely up to you. The
Yep.
cheapest version versus the most expensive version. I don't have it's like I'm not going to tell you how much money to spend. They all do pretty much the same. What I would say is look at the specs. So ZBrush has over 8,000 supports over 8,000 points of pressure sensitivity. So you want a tablet that at least covers the 8,000 pressure sensitivity points, which most tablets today do. I personally use Sense Labs because I really like them. It's a nice big 24-inch display. It's really good. It was really affordable for me, so I really like that. But I've used everything under the sun, from Huion to XP Pen to
Yep.
to Sense Labs to Wacom. What I would say is it's more of a feeling than anything else. So if you have the opportunity to like hang out with a friend who has one, or go to like an electronics store that may have them on display, and try to just like feel them out, because a lot of people will pick the tablet that feels right, not necessarily that is the right price. But if you're just starting out and you have no idea, like I said, just don't worry about getting the best of the best. Just get something that at least has 8,000 points of pressure sensitivity and is within your budget. What about you, Rodolfo?
Yeah, I mean, same thing, man. I used an XP pen for a while, like for years actually.
Mhm.
Um, and then eventually I started using the Zense Labs. I had a Wacom as well. I had an XP pen and a Wacom. Well, my first tablet was actually a bamboo, but they don't make those anymore. I mean, like the
Yeah,
Wacom bamboo, but I mean, whatever works, man. As long as you have the pressure sensitivity on, and again, if you're looking at, it depends also again on your budget, and also if you're looking at a display tablet or a non-display tablet, right? So usually you get more out of your, well, usually, not usually, all the time, you get more out of your money if you don't get a display tablet, obviously. But if you're one of those like me that actually has to, actually sculpt on the object, like you feel like you're actually sculpting on the object, so then for a display tablet, again, it's all about sensitivity, but for a display tablet you have that input lag as well. Like you have to take a look at how is the input lag. Does it have like that hovering thing? It might annoy you, it might not. If you're just starting out, I guess that's not a big deal. You're just trying to get used to the software, right? And sculpting. uh so I wouldn't stress over it. It's up to you. So I guess it's more like what's within your budget, I assume. And then
yeah,
again, pressure sensitivity.
yeah, absolutely. All right.
So if I'm not too talkative, that's how I roll when I'm uh, modeling rocks, I guess.
Oh, you just silent as a cucumber.
Yeah,
That's all good. I was
silent as a
just
rock.
I was just thinking like, there you go. I was just thinking like, oh man, he needs some big eyes. Just gotta find the right proportion
I
here.
do, man. I do need big eyes. That's why I wear glasses.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, is Nightbot being done? Yeah. Okay. So we need to go in and fix Nightbot.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. Apologies to anybody with on the Twitch side of things. Nightbot got a little out of hand, and we're trying to fix it. So we're working on it. I
Yeah.
keep forgetting to go in and follow up, so I apologize to that. So yeah, curse Nightbot.
Damn your Nightbot.
Yeah, sorry. And I get it too, because It's just three. It's just three emotes. So for honestly, anybody who shares three emotes and then gets knocked out by Notbot, I will absolutely share those emotes on screen. So here you go. Yeah, because that's ridiculous. I apologize. Yes.
Yeah.
Time to put Nightbot to bed.
Here's a cool thing when you're running out of ideas for design. If you want to start designing the shape language, if you're running out of ideas, you can just go ahead and do some quick UVs and apply some surface noise with a texture that you might have of a rock, and then use that to sculpt your patterns and designs, right? So again, cheating.
Yeah.
So this is what I'll be doing. So before I read Dynamesh, I'm just going to slice up a few quick polygroups. I could do it through polygroup it as well, but I guess I'm too lazy for that. And then because this is such a low poly, it's still such a low poly model, I'm turn off Dynamesh just in case. And then I'm going to go UV master polygroups and wrap. Bada bing, bada boom, done. And of course, now you don't want to see this. You want to see the menus. And then we got to go to, this is why I usually prefer to have these images on Spotlight. So if we have this, and then we pick an alpha, and I had an alpha here. Oops.
I got a question here. So, hey, and I was wondering that you're gonna make a frog in quadruped model, not humanoid. It is what it is, or are you gonna pose it like a common frog at the end? So I'm actually going. So if you were here at the beginning of the stream, Rodolfo and I have an idea of a statue that we're gonna be making, and I think we should give the statue away when it's done for people to 3D print.
Sure.
I think it'd
The
be fun.
STL, just give it away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give it away.
So there you
Give it
go.
away.
But
Give it away.
it's actually I want you to try to guess. I'm gonna start like putting some other things. There's a reason why it's kind of humanoid-ish right now, like it's in that vein, but I'm gonna start dressing it once I get the base mesh blocked out. So it's still very loose right now, but if you can guess where we're going with it, I think it'll become obvious on one of the things. So I'm gonna wait a little bit longer to reveal it. But we're in a very interesting direction, and I think you guys will like it. So great question. But yeah, if I were to sculpt a frog in its base form, like here we go. If I were to sculpt a frog like this, then obviously I would be treating this a whole lot differently. I would actually, if I were to do a T-posed frog, I would actually do it like this, where it's laid out, where you have the head and the belly this way, the arms are kind of flared out a little bit, the legs are flared out and spaced out this way. I would do it this way because it would make a whole lot more sense for the direction of what we're doing. But again, if we were going for like a typical frog, but in this case, we're going for something a little bit different. So, and if you were looking at if you were looking at my tabs, you might have sneak peeked something. But here, it'll all reveal itself soon. I promise. That I promise you. So.
Yep.
Yep.
But
that being said, something that I would like to call out that was kind of news to I guess it was kind of news to me in a really interesting way. Frogs have butts, guys. If you didn't know that. No, you do. So we definitely have to give them something.
Yeah, sculpt that frog butt.
Yep, you're gonna do it. Go and flatten that out. There we go. Okay. And just like in human anatomy, if we were to hide the arms for a second, this is something too, a little call out here. So with kind of humanoid characters, something to notice is that the crotch region of the character is lower than where the butt intersects and stuff like that. If you were to look at, if we were to open up tools, so shout out to Ryan Kingsley. If you guys didn't see the ZBrush Summit, you're missing out because we talked about frogs, but also we had really amazing guests like Ryan Kingsley here. And so one of the things that's kind of cool to note is, so here is the structure of the glute, of the gluteus maximus and minimus. And so here, notice where it's ending right now, right? Notice it's like right down here at this bottom part. Let's make sure we can see. I know I got a keyboard in the way. So you got this right here. So if we were to turn everything else on but this, and let's just go ahead and kind of hide this section right there. So that's the low part, and then it intersects in this legs here. There we go. So something like that. There we go. Like that. There you go. Perfect. And then let's go ahead and just turn everything else on. You'll notice that this area right here, so see how low this is in this case? So if we were to just stamp this and turn this over, notice just by turning it over where the location of the front is to where the growing is. The front is much higher and the rear glutes is much lower. So you want to remember that when you're doing any type of blockouts here. And so this is one of the things that really helps make characters come to life a little bit. Is recognizing where things are here. So we want his glutes. Boop. So let's go ahead, shift that, make that here. Again, we want to make sure that that's lower. Not by, it doesn't need to be a whole lot. That's probably really exaggerated, so we can probably kick that up. But we want to make sure that wherever the butt is going to end, that the growing actually is a little bit further down. So just a little fun call out right there. Hey, what's happening, Batul? How you doing?
Hey, Batul.
All right. So there you go. So that's going to feel a little bit more natural in that case here. And then for the arms, let's go ahead and put this back. Now I put I tend to put spheres where there are socket joints when I'm doing blockouts, because sockets obviously have a full range of motion. And this is something that I tend to put in there to help me place the arm correctly and for it to feel more natural. What's really cool about frogs is that their neck and their body, it just all blends in with each other, you know? Like they don't really have any necks. It's like, well, they do. I mean, because they can rotate their head, but it's like, you know, their shoulders are like coming out of their neck. And it's also like right there at the base. Frogs are so cool. This is why I love frogs, guys. And notice too that the arms themselves are actually more forward on a frog than anything else. So they're very much up right there at like the base of the neck. And then it kind of flares out and then comes back in. So this whole direction where you have the eyes up here, and then it flares out, and then right as it's coming back in and blending in with the body is where the arm actually, quote, sticks out. So we want to replicate that as much as possible. So in this case here, it's helpful, right, to put a socket where you think you need it. And then we can kind of like push that forward a bit and find that placement. And then we can put the arm where we need it to be. There we go. And we can also rotate this around a little bit. So let's come over here. Let's rotate this in a bit. Yes, there we go. And so then we can replicate that, right? So right here, what we want to do in the back of them, so we want to pull this, out. So let's just, again, let's actually grab this guy here, Control Shift A, we'll Control W to make that a different poly group. All right, and then we're going to go ahead. So we need to flare this part out. Let me smooth that in a little bit. There we go. Say something like that. That's all going to kind of blend in with that eyelid there. And then it's going to come back in, and then that's where the arm should be. So actually, this arm is really low. So that's too low. So let's go ahead and change that. So we'll deselect everything. We'll come in and we'll select the socket and the arm, and we'll just move that up. There we go. And that's how you go and you find your proportions and the things that you want. right? Let's go ahead and mask off the rest of this, and then we can kind of start coming in and filling this in a little bit. And of course, too, once we actually at this point, what I would do personally is I would weld the legs. I think I'm gonna weld the arms and that socket together, or you could just get rid of the socket. We really actually don't really need it so much anymore. We kind of found our placement, which is good. So we can come in and just hit delete. So modify topology, delete hidden. Here you go. That's going to be a good spot. And then now we're just going to go ahead and start kind of filling in the body just a little bit more. There we go. And then let's just shape the arms a little bit more. There we go. And then we'll be doing copacetic. And then here, I'm just going to go ahead and dynamesh this. Let's find a resolution. So you can just literally hold down the slider and find the resolution you want, and then turn dynamesh on, so you're not guessing as to what that is.
Yeah, we have some guesses already from Batul. You're wrong though, but yeah, good guess. It's a good guess, but
it's a good guess.
But
we're getting yeah, it all will be revealed soon. Absolutely. All right. So here, because he's kind of a humanoid character too, I'm just gonna go ahead and just add in some markings for the anatomy. And forearm anatomy is crazy because it's one of those that, like, you know, it rotates. And so because it rotates, you have the muscle. They're not just straight down. They kind of wrap around and go through. So there's definitely some points that you want to try to hit. You want to hit some bony landmarks, focus on where those bones would be, which I believe is the radial and the ulna, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So I was not one to remember anatomy names very well. I just remember.
I was like that as well, but then I had a teacher that taught me the names differently, not just as names, like, because names in anatomy usually allude to either the shape, that it looks like something like deltoid looks like a delta sign from the old delta character. And well, speaking of which, you're sculpting the deltoid. Was it because I said it? Was it because I was like, oh, deltoid, and you're like, oh, let's sculpt the deltoid? Yeah. So radius and ulna. Basically, radius is the one that rotates. That's why it's a radius, right? Because it rotates around the ulna, which is the center point, right? So that kind of stuff for me made my life so much easier learning anatomy. Like memorizing the names is just boring, right? When you learn the names because they allude to a shape or something, like bicep, it's because there's two heads on the muscle. Tricep has three heads, right?
Yeah.
The quadricep muscles is more of a muscle group. That's kind of like a mistake the Romans did, but but
it can't all be perfect.
It can't all be perfect, right? So, but technically that makes it so much easier to learn the names, right? So I would advise people to learn the names, but don't just try to memorize them. Just understand why they're called what they're called, right? And then it'd be much, much easier. Yeah. I mean, in case you want to learn the names. If you don't want to learn it, I mean, you do you, like.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
So you don't want to learn it.
Dude, I'm learning Japanese right now. They only got so much room in my head. I got all the ZBrush knowledge, and then I'm learning a second language. So maybe, we learn the basics. Learn the basics. That's what I recommend. And then you can go crazy. I have friends in medical illustration, and they just, like, I know what they're talking about when they say them, but it literally, like, it does not, there's no stopper in my head. It's like it goes in, translates, be like, yep, understand that, and then it leaves, and it's like it's gone.
You mean like that South Park episode? And it's gone.
And it's gone. And it's gone. Gone. Okay, so we got this right here. It's like, I'm taking a guess at the statue. A frog holding a tiny rock. That's pretty. That's pretty funny, and it's a pretty good guess. I like what you're thinking there.
Yeah, good guess. Wrong again, but you're good guess.
Exactly. Yep. Don't worry. I'm gonna start. There's gonna be some dressing here. Let's see here. Thank you for the explanation. It seems the thumbnail of the video is not what they are doing right now. No, the thumbnail was actually that frog ships with ZBrush. We just wanted
Right.
to have a frog in the thumbnail. That frog is actually up here. So here, I'll show you exactly where it is. And actually, that frog is done by Joseph Druss, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So in Druss we trust, absolutely.
And
So if you go up to your main projects, go into demo projects, and then you come here, you have a demo tree frog. And what this demo tree frog, I'm not going to click it now because it's a project and it'll cancel everything that I do. But what that project was actually designed for was showcasing a feature called thick skin. So
Yeah.
real quick, if you guys don't know thick skin, then we're going to go over it right now. So with thick skin here, what it does, let's go ahead and solve this for a second. Let's say for the example of whatever, a thick, where is it? Thick skin clay brush, right? And if I do this, it's just kind of moving stuff around and so forth and kind of giving me like a little bit of a kind of clay texture. If I go one way, it's going to give me one stroke. Actually, here, let's do this. Let's go to geometry. Let's actually increase the resolution. There we go. Perfect. Let's make it a little bit denser. A little bit denser. There we go. Smooth it, rebuild. There we go. Nice and dense. So if I go one way, it's going to give me one stroke. If I go another way, it's going to give me a different type of stroke. So it's meant for that kind of back and forth thing. And it was really kind of designed to work really well with this feature called thick skin. So if we were to go to, it's actually its own folder. So back out of geometry, go to thick skin and turn this on. And what you get is a thickness slider. And this thickness slider actually balloons the mesh out pretty far too. And what
Yeah.
this ballooning effect will do is it's gonna act like a stop gate. So now if I use this mesh, see now I have this brush rather, you see it's actually kind of giving me this capped effect here. And as I'm sculpting on here, it's actually applying this thickness to it. And right now, this is all control Zable, by the way. So with this thickness here, you also can do things, for example, like let's use the damn standard brush because I do this for hard surface stuff. So hard surface, here you go, Rodolfo. So here I make a single stroke like this. You see, it's just done here. But if I keep hitting 1, which is the default short key for last stroke, repeat last stroke, you see here, now it's going to cap, but now it flattens out. And that's the actual thick skin. And it works the same way. If I were to go plus and keep doing this, eventually it's going to cap out. And that's going to give you some really cool, interesting planes and stuff like that. So that demo file is actually designed for showcasing thick skin because he used it on the skin itself. And what's really neat is, of course, we can do something like this. So here, let's go ahead. Let's go here, one stroke on the plus side, right? And then it caps out. And this is really cool for blending things together. Hit 1 again, bunch this out. Boom, 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 boom. Right? So now I have this design shaped on his back. And this is where it can be really cool for hard surface stuff. So this is thick skin, which is pretty nice. And again, it is fully control Zable. The thing to remember with thick skin actually is that if let's say you're done with this design and you turn it off and then you turn it back on, that's actually going to now calculate all of these changes as well. So now it's going to remember all those changes. So that's why it supports its own undo history, or it supports the undo history here at the top, is because when you turn it off, it actually will remember what that mesh is before you turned it on. So you can't just go back to the beginning on that. So if you want to keep adding to this thick skin, just leave it on and you're totally fine. But if you don't, then turn it off and you're copacetic. So yeah, so that's where that is. It's really cool, actually. I really do dig that feature. It's such a cool feature. But yeah, ships a ZBrush. So we just wanted that in the we just wanted a frog in the thumbnail, and that one was cool. But don't worry, I think you guys might like what we're doing with this. Okay, there we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this really loose. This is still very loose here. But what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to merge part of his legs into his body because I'm going to start to dress him because he is going to have clothing. Surprise, surprise, there will be clothing. So we're going to split hidden. We're going to move up to the body. Eventually, his whole legs will be merged together. So we'll just start with one part. And then let's go ahead and just Dynamesh that. And we're going to go ahead and just kind of blend this together. There we go. Awesome. Okay. And now from here, let's go ahead and take this and let's do a quick dressing. So for any type of clothing, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And Rodolfo, you can cut me off anytime. I'm just going to talk now. So any type of clothing, we're going to go ahead. I'm just going to block out. I don't need to get fancy here. We're just going to go ahead and do something like this. And let's say something like that. Yeah, that's pretty good. Go ahead and Control-Alt-Tap to sharpen that mask out. Anytime you're doing, actually, hold on real quick. What I realized too is that he has like a he has a bubble back here, and that's not correct. So let's go ahead and clean that up just a little bit. There we go. A little bit more of a subtle transition. There we go. Say something like that. That's better. That's better. There we go. Okay, great. And I always recommend too learning the direction of the muscle that you're sculpting in, because the way the fibers are together is actually going to help make a more believable model. So anytime that you're doing any type of anatomy sculpting, try to sculpt it or try to apply clay in the direction that the fibers are going. It just makes it a little bit easier, in my opinion. Okay, great. Something like that. All right, there we go. So now we got this. Now we can go ahead and kind of mask off what we're going for. So here, boop. And yes, we're doing shorts. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so when you're doing any type of go a little higher with that. Any type of clothing, I like to work in single-sided geometry. I think it's way easier, especially for clothing, because you can always apply a thickness. So here, we're going to go ahead and go to our subtool. We're going to go to our extract, and we're going to take the thickness down to 0, rather. Hit extract, and then hit accept. And if we solo, you're just left with this single-sided mesh. Now it's going to be masked off with a slight gradation of that mask at the top. And the reason for that is we can actually soften that a bit. And we want to clean this edge up so we can actually get really clean topology with ZBrush. So here we can go to deformation, and then we can go to our polish by features. And what we're going to want to do here is let's put on something a little bit more visual appealing, like, there we go. So if we do polish by features, it's going to help straighten that up a little bit, but it's really like not pushing heavily. So what we can do is there's a little bubble. We can open that up on that polish by features, do it one more time, and now that's going to give me a nice straight edge. Now what this is doing is literally taking the vertices and smashing them together to produce a straight line. And the reason why we want to do that is because ZBrush is going to look at all those smashed verts as a straight line, and it's going to use that as its own guide. And what's really neat, and it might be really hard to see because that's the nature of this, but it is creased. It might be really hard to see. Let's see if we can open it up. You might see the little dots. They are creased on the edge. So if we take advantage of that creasing, we can go to geometry, go to ZBrush. From here, again, this is 116,000 active points, so 5,000 is going to be plenty for the shape that we need. We can do keep groups, turn that on, but turn it down to 0 because it doesn't. It smooths the geometry, but it doesn't shrink it. But if you smooth something enough, it eventually shrinks. So you turn that down to 0, but you do the keep groups on there so that you could access the smooth groups. Adaptive size, do that down to something like 2. And then from there, go ahead and ZRemesh, make sure you have symmetry turned on. And automatically, if we're looking at this mesh, it's going to go from this kind of crazy wonkiness to something that's halfway decent. And here, 5 was actually really big. So let's just go ahead and say 2, maybe half that. Like we try to go as low as we can go. There we go. Perfect. And that's not too bad. Okay, we have a little bit of interesting mesh here calling out. So if we go back, all right, we have a loop here. That's fine. If we could do this one more time. So this kind of collides a bit. We could fix this. This isn't that big of an issue. We can go into Z modeler, hover over the point, and we can do a stitch. And we can just stitch those 2 points. Easy. Go back to the move brush. And then we can reshape that. There you go. So whatever that funkiness is, that's over with. That's fine. And now we can do is we can actually kind of bring this, we can inflate this to our character because it's single-sided. So if we inflate it, there's no colliding normals here. So we can just go ahead and press and hold Control and do a centered inflate and start getting him dressed a little bit. And then from there, we can go ahead and do still a smooth relax. So you start smoothing and let go of shift to relax it. There we go. Move this about. And this is how I start blocking out clothing. And with that single-sided geometry, like I said, it allows us to control the mesh. So anytime we move it, right, we don't have to worry about the thickness being maintained. But what we could do is go to dynamic subdiv, turn on dynamic subdivision. And then from here, we can drop the smoothing down to almost nothing. And then we can apply a thickness, something that might suit our needs. So 0.006, or sorry, 0.006. There you go. So now whenever I move the mesh, that thickness is going to remain the same because it's actually not, it's just a projection. It's not actual geometry. So if I turn that off, it's single-sided again. If I turn it back on, it now has that thickness. So this is a way you can actually do that. And you can also control the offset. So if you need to bring it closer to the character, you can offset it to like negative 50. If you want to extend it away from the character, then you can go positively up to 100. So you can adjust this as you need to and make that work for you. And that way it's always there. And you can adjust that thickness on the fly whenever you need it.
Nice.
So there you go. There's my rant. All right. I think it's time to make the next little piece. We're still in major blockout stage. How are you doing, buddy?
I was just tweaking an alpha that I was using for surface noise, adding it to the standard brush, which with roll, and then modifying it to make it stylized. Because again, this is an alpha that you can get for free online. Like you can just find a bunch of displacement maps, right, for rocky surfaces from scan data or tile level textures or whatever. And once you find that, it's usually fairly realistic. So let me see if I can reset this back again. So I'm gonna go back here to this one, and let me just reset all the settings. There you go. So this, if I go to drag rect, this is the alpha, right? This is a tileable alpha, which can be used as surface noise. And the problem with this is that it's too detailed. If we want to go for stylized stuff, right? Obviously, like by default, this would actually be like this: contrast 1, no blurring, strength. Whoops. Turn on Sculptors Pro by accident. Sorry. So by default, this would be something like this, right? Where you have very noisy, very detailed alpha, right? And you don't want that for any sort of stylized. Well, you could, but then you have to sort of go over it again. And I want very clear shapes, right? And even though this is edging on that non-stylized surface anymore because of this, like very, very high frequency, we want to avoid that. So what you will usually do is you have this little alpha adjust curve over here where we can just adjust the alpha, and you can see the alpha changing over there. And now it's a little, let me find a clear spot over here. So something like this, right? Or I could actually, just go over here and make polymesh 3D, divide it a bunch of times. And now you can see that this alpha that was very high frequency, it's a little more contrasty. It's kind of like you're playing with the levels, right? Well, it's not kinda, it's exactly what it is. You're playing with the levels when you're doing the alpha adjust curve thing. And then not just that, but then you turn on this max, meaning that it doesn't go above 1. If you think about 0 to 1, right? It doesn't go above 1, it caps out, meaning that there's going to be flat areas when it goes above 1 in terms of value, right? And below 0 as well. And then I blur it just a little bit and increase the contrast. And then we get something like this, which is still a little noisy, a little too noisy, but you can tweak the mask, basically, not the mask, sorry, the alpha, to make these curves a little more flat. And if you do that, now we start having like clean detail. Let's say very edgy and jagged detail. That's what I want, right, for this piece. So you want something like this. And you can see how very different this looks immediately, even though it's the same alpha, right? And that's the point. And you can tweak the mid value. I usually turn on surface just because it's going to evaluate the surface to gauge what's the best mid value for your displacement map, right? And this usually works like a charm, especially when you're doing surfaces that are very varied in their nature, right? So rocks would be a good candidate for that. That's it. Nice. That's what I was doing. And then turning on roll on the stroke palette under lazy mouse, you can turn on where is it? Oh, Jesus, of course. You can't have the drag rect stroke type. So go to dots, go to stroke, and then under modifiers, you turn on roll, and this basically allows you to sculpt on the surface along a path. So if I'm doing, let's go back to the cube. If I want to do like this, going around that surface. So this is perfect for like cliff sides and stuff like that, right? When you're making a pattern that's kind of like, let's say, perpendicular to the design and the shape of the rock, right? Because it gets those edges, especially in sandstone, because it's accumulation of wind and humidity and then dryness, right? So it gets those little like layered effect, like the pancake effect. That's what I call it, the pancake effect. In the cliffside of the sandstone rocks, right? So to do that, you just tweak your textures, right? Turn on roll under stroke modifiers, and then you just do this, go all around. And here's the cool thing, because you can also go to stroke, and under lazy mouse, you increase that lazy snap a little bit. So just in case you want to go, let's go to stroke. Let's actually increase the lazy radius too. So if we do something like this, and then we're like, oh, I need to rotate my camera, but I want to keep going. If you have lazy snap on, it's going to snap to the last place that you left off, right? When you lifted your pen or your Apple Pencil, whatever, if you're on the iPad, it's the same. From the screen, it's going to carry on. So it's not going to have a weird seam anywhere. It's just going to be exactly where you can see it snapped. See, like I let go over there. So now if I rotate and I go anywhere near it, actually this one doesn't snap, but it didn't snap because this snap needs to be higher. Maybe increase that a little bit. That's kind of like the razier. It's kind of like a snap threshold kind of a thing, right? When you're, welding verts and whatever. So then this would be ideal if you want to do like some sort of design pattern around a rock, and then you can sculpt on top of that.
That's really cool. We got a cool question that's coming through, which is, boop, boop, any tips when we should use Dynamesh only or switch to Sculptress? You want to take this one?
Yeah, so I guess it's up to you in a sense. Like I usually, when I use Sculptress, I use it in conjunction with Dynamesh. So let's say, okay, I'm modeling this rock here, right? Let's say this little cube, and I want to start blocking out stuff. And what I usually do, and this is something I probably got from my fine art classes, but I guess they are applicable in any sort of field or specialization or whatever you're doing, is that you always work from big forms, general shape, to smaller forms. Never the opposite. Never the other way. Never like this, right? Where you have a cube and then you have all of these detail, all of this detail on top, right? So what you'd want to do is you want to keep your Dynamesh or your Sculptris Pro on a very low kind of resolution. The issue that I have when I'm doing that with Sculptris Pro is that you get a tendency, certain brushes work better on a specific scale. And if you reduce the scale, so if I turn on, for example, if I go to stroke, and first of all, let me delete those subdivisions because Sculptris Pro requires that. And then if you go to stroke and under Sculptris Pro, you turn that on, and you can see like almost any brush, not all of them, but almost every brush works with Sculptris Pro. And the ones that work better with Sculptris Pro are actually snake hook. So even if I'm doing like moving the shape into place, I can use snake hook as long as I don't push it like that, right? So the problem is that I'm starting to shape it up. You can see like it's super low resolution, and I'm starting to first block out my forms. Let's say I want to do like a more of a small, like more of a straighter kind of rock instead of a rounder one like I was doing. I'm doing something like this, and then I'm using maybe my clip curve. Whoops, I used the slice instead of the clip. So let's say I want to do my clip curve, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I want to change that shape with AccuCurve. So I shrank down my draw size. You see this? This is the problem, right? I don't want that much detail. I just want to move it. So now I have to keep turning it on and off again, right? And what I usually do is I stay in Dynamesh very low resolution up until I figure out my base shapes, and then I use both in conjunction. So what I mean by that is that I drag my resolution slider from Dynamesh onto this Sculptris Pro mesh, right? So in order to get the exact resolution that I'm going to get. So if I Dynamesh this now, it's going to retain the same density of the polygons, meaning that it's going to try to make the polygons the same size. So if I turn on Dynamesh, you can see it's the same size, but they're quads, right? They're not triangles, so it's a little different. But at least in terms of resolution, we're getting the same resolution. And by same resolution, I don't mean the same poly count. I mean the same in terms of visual resolution, let's call it, right? So when you're doing this, then it's easier to move. But now we're in Sculptris Pro again. So I usually turn this off until I find the shape that I want. Let's say I want to start doing stuff like this and using the clip curve and whatever. And then after a certain point, when I start increasing this Dynamesh a little bit, right, up until like this point, where now the shapes become a little bit more softer because of the nature of the resolution, right? And now I mean the actual polygonal resolution, right? Mm-hmm. Then I turn on Sculptris Pro, and I keep using Sculptris Pro in conjunction with Dynamesh. And even when you go to a later stage, let's say, like let's go back to our rock here. So if I go over here and now I start, maybe I don't want those subdivisions. So let me just turn on Dynamesh and grab that resolution. Even at this later stage, when I'm starting to think about smaller forms, like secondary to almost tertiary forms, I can still keep this under Sculptris Pro. The issue now that I have is that if I have my brush size too big, let's say I want to do like an orbs crack, and without Sculptris Pro, I could actually just, even though I'm in the detailing phase, I could come in here and do this, right? To make that indent over there. Now, with Sculptris Pro, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that it's going to destroy my detail, right? What you can do with this is go over to your settings of Sculptris Pro settings and reduce the subdivide size, right? And if we reduce this is basically telling you how small do you want the triangles to be in relation to the draw size. So it's still related to the draw size, right? But it's going to get smaller. The smaller this number, the smaller the polygons, right? Wait, let me check that. That exactly it, right? So you can see even with Sculptris Pro on, I'm still retaining that detail. And you can see I'm increasing the poly count. Not a lot, because again, Sculptris Pro is also reading your current mesh. So if the polygon that you're sculpting on top of is the same size as the Sculptris Pro polygon that would be generated, then it doesn't basically do anything to the topology. So you can see there's some areas here that are not remeshed per se. But if I reduce the size just a little bit, there you go. See that? It's much higher resolution and frequency, and it didn't completely ruin what I had there before, right? So I would use both in conjunction, but this is me, right? Everyone works differently. And Sculptris Pro is more dynamic in the sense that as you're sculpting, you're remeshing on the fly. Dynamesh is more, it's controlled, right? It's more controlled in the sense that you control the exact resolution that you want your model to be. And by the way, and this is a cool trick for those of you who think this resolution slider is too ambiguous, because again, this resolution slider is the resolution of the voxels. It's basically how many voxels do you want? It's using a voxelization, right? To remesh your mesh. So the bigger this number, the more voxels, meaning the more topology. And then whenever the voxels intercept the mesh or intersect with the mesh, it's going to create edges, right? That's why you get those weird triangles, because that's where a corner of a voxel would intersect with the mesh. So one of the things that people tend to think is, or I've heard this, is there a way to actually tell Dynamesh the exact poly count that I want? And there is, but it's under this gizmo deformer. There's a gizmo deformer here called Remesh by Dynamesh, which is in essence the same thing, but with cones, because we love cones, right? I love cones, so you love cones.
I like
so
cones.
If we,
everybody likes cones.
Everybody likes cones, especially in the summer. In the summer, or scones. Scones are actually better. Sorry, it's dinner time already here, so getting a little hungry. So there we go. So now one of the things that we have is this is Dynamesh, right? Just as you have it under your geometry subpalette. The difference is that you have cones, and one of these cones actually says target poly count, meaning that you can basically tell it an exact poly count. So if I go, it's going to try its best to be at around the poly count that I want to have. So if I hold shift, it's going to give me even numbers. Let's say 9900. So it's like 9,900 polygons. If I do this, and now I hover over that subtool, whoops, well, without my pure F in front. So if I hover over my subtool, oh, Jesus, it's still in front. Let me just move it over here. All right. So if I hover over that subtool, you can see it's around 10,000 points, 10,000 polygons, right? And it's trying its best to stay within that range. So if it's too ambiguous for you, like just have an arbitrary resolution slider, use this to get a more accurate representation of the exact poly count that you want, right? So if you want to increase this to 1 million, just go over to like 1 million, and then I remesh this.
1 million.
And now I go over here, and you can see it's 958,476. Again, it's never going to be exactly that same poly count, just because it's a voxelization algorithm. It's going to go through and generate voxels, let's say, and wherever it intersects with the mesh, it creates topology. But then you have those weird little spots where the intersection is just a little random. So it generates weird geometry over there, and that is very hard to gauge if you want to have an exact poly count. But this is a way to be a little bit more accurate with Dynamesh.
Yeah, that's cool. On that note, you were talking earlier about alphas and rolls and stuff like that. So one of the questions came in, now that you're talking about using rolls, how can you use an alpha ornamental pattern around a cylinder, for an example?
Mm-hmm.
Especially since it's like, Christmas time and stuff like that, or it's coming into holiday season more. Yeah, people are sculpting ornaments and stuff. That's a good one. I'm going to make you full screen for a little bit because you're going on a really cool tangent. So go for it, buddy.
Well, let me check here. Do we have
Hey, Cube's in the house. What up, hey, Cube?
Hey, Ashley. Oh. Frogs and rocks. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Cube, stay a little bit longer because there's going to be a reveal of what we're doing here in a second.
Oh, that's going to be cool. Do we have an ornamental brush here somewhere? I had one, but I think it's on my iPad. I have one that I made, right? Do we have something? If we don't, I'll just exemplify this with a regular alpha. Let's see if we have a.
While you're searching for that, I've kind of blocked out a thing that I'm hoping. Kind of.
It's a hint. It's a hint.
It's a huge hint. Yeah. It's a. So, you know.
Yeah. What do you guys think it is? All right, we'll give you some time on that one.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
The beta testers. Did the beta testers made? Nobody made an ornamental brush. Maybe I need to make one. Just make one or an ornamental brush. Let's do deco. Let's see. No, this is different. All right, so I'm just going to exemplify this on a regular alpha, whatever.
Well,
So if you have a cylinder, right? You're talking about.
oh my God. Hold on. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
Wait.
A-Cube just says, is the Froggo going to be using the rock as a punching bag?
That's
Boom.
that's half of the that's half of the story. Now I challenge you to guess the rest. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no, that's like spot on. That's like spot
Yeah,
on.
it's spot on. But
Yeah.
no, there's a little detail there that I'm hoping people will get it. If you have a like very dad kind of sense of humor, you will get it because that's sort of where it came from.
Mhm. Yeah,
You know?
yeah. But wow,
It's
A-Cube.
frogs and rocks, guys. Da-na-na, da-na-na.
Somebody says, but it's rocky.
Well, there you go. That's the other half. That's the other half.
See, you guys are on it. You guys are on it.
So, okay, let's go back to this. I have this alpha.
Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
I thought it was going to take them longer. Come on. All right, so I have this alpha, and let's say this alpha is a pattern, like a tileable ornamental pattern of some sort, right? Like you could design your own, you can sculpt your own ZBrush, you can use Substance Designer to generate your own patterns, right? And then bring it here as a displacement map or as an alpha. And then the moment that you turn on roll over here, basically, it becomes, if you go to modifiers here, you turn on roll. Well, actually, I turned on roll for my smooth brush. You don't want that. You turn on roll, that means that it's just rolling on that texture. So you can see it's tileable. If it's not tileable, the texture is not tileable, then this could be a little funky. You could see the seam. You can still see where it repeats because it's just a very obvious, there's a lot of very harsh details there. So you're going to notice it, but it is seamless. You know what I mean? So you can go around that and sculpt your ornamental details. Now, another thing that I would say is that if you have that as a scribe chisel brush, so you have a brush here that's called a scribe chisel, right? So if you have, where is that? Scribe. Okay, this PureRef is annoying me, so I'm going to put it on my other screen. Sorry.
That's fair.
PureRef is annoying. That's why I prefer Spotlight, man. I prefer Spotlight. I just use PureRef because it's easier to import from Pinterest, right? A bunch of images. But Spotlight as a reference tool in ZBrush, to me, is just, there's no replacing that at all. So, okay, so now if we have something like this, and if you go to your Scribe Chisel, again, I'm trying to, my brain, if you go to Scribe Chisel, this is in essence a curve brush, but it has tips. So imagine, I don't know how many of you people are Gundam fans. I'm assuming there's some in the chat. If not, you should. but here's the thing. This is basically trying to mimic those scribers that you buy off of the Gundam and model kits stores, right? That you buy those little chisels that then you use to create scribe lines and create panel lines on your hard surface models. Now, you can do this, and then you have a curve that goes around the model. And then the moment you tap that curve, it's going to either sculpt in or, scribe it. Or if you press hold Alt and tap that curve, now it's pushing out. And this is how I design most of my ornaments, actually, but I just design them on a plane. And then I convert that to an alpha brush or a VDM brush. And there you have it. And you have your ornament brush that you can then use like a roll. So, Jesus, let me see if I have it over here somewhere. Ornamental brush. I had that. Do I have it in the previous? Oh, there it is. Ornaments IMM. Is this it? There it is. Ornaments. I knew I made a brush for that. I knew I made a brush. So let's say you have like this flowery pattern like this, right? You have this. And you want to basically sculpt. I made these patterns using this exact workflow that I just showed you with the scribe chisel, right? And then you store a morph target, so then they don't actually sculpt on top of the previous pattern. Let me just divide this a couple times more. So you can see that they're kind of going into each other. And that's basically because you store a morph target, right? And it knows where that curve needs to sit is the original plane. But we can go over that in maybe my next stream. But here's the thing. If we have this and we change the stroke to dots and then go to our stroke, and on our stroke, we turn on roll, here you go. Well, you have that pattern over there. So you can go and start sculpting around your cylinder. But still, this is kind of not really optimal. And let's try something here. Let's try something real quick.
Hey, real quick too, while you're showing that too, in addition to what you're already showcasing, it can be any alpha, it doesn't matter. What I'm unsure about is how to do it without interrupting the stroke to rotate the cylinder.
Right, that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to figure out if I have a curve. I do this. That would be.
So one of the. I have a thought too. Just I'm thinking of another way I could do it. So one of these things I would say is like turn it into here if you don't mind.
Drag rect and radial symmetry.
No,
super simple. I was trying to overcomplicate.
Morph UV. So when you I'll show what I'm talking about, and then you could set it up because you're already set up on your side. But let's say, for example, I have a cylinder, right? This is going to be my ornament. It could be whatever. What you want to do is have your UVs laid out in a way that makes sense. So here, check this out. So if you come here to your crease options, and I'm just going to go ahead and just say just crease, and that's going to crease my edging here. And then with my Z modeler, I'm purposely going to come here and say crease by shortest path. And I'm just going to unwrap from this point to this point. So right now I'm utilizing the creased edges as seams for what I want to do. And then from here, I can go to UV.
On your screen, because I don't think they can see it.
Yeah, it's hard to see a crease, but just trust me. You just crease the top, crease the bottom, crease the crease right down the middle. So you got a crease up here, a crease down here, and crease here, right? And the idea here is then you go to create, and then you go to unwrap by creased edges. And what this will do is with the morph UV, and this is what morph UV was actually designed to do. So look, okay, well, that's kind of crappy, but let's do this. Don't know why it broke that way. So let's do this one instead. Let's just do, where are we? Polygroups and group by just auto groups here. We can just do this too. We can do group by normals. We can also do it this way where you just come here just to UV master, and then you just do unwrap by UV points, whatever. Either way, the whole point is when you go to
you didn't turn on polygroups.
Oh yeah, right. I didn't. No, thank you. Anyway, go back, unwrap. There we go. Okay, so the point here is now you have this flat surface. This flat surface is sculptable. You can actually do a straight line, right? You can sculpt on that, and then you bring it back, and it now goes all the way around, right? So that's the idea here. You could do that too. So if you have a pattern that's going around something, all you need to do is just sculpt on that pattern however you want. Say something like that. All right, kind of do your best to get it in there. Then when you bring this back, now that's completely around. That's actually what the morph UV is for. So then you can sculpt on a flat surface, and then you can bring that back. So that's one way I would do it as well.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you. So yeah, something like that works.
Yeah. I mean, what I was going to say was actually I was trying to complicate it with curve mode and whatever. It's actually much easier if you want to do like this floral design, for example. Let me turn off curve mode. If you want to do this all around the surface of the mesh, just go to drag rect. I'm going to store a morph target, and you'll see why. So if I store a morph target over here, and now I turn on radial symmetry under the transform and turn on radial on the y-axis. Let's say we want 8 of these, and we do this, and you can see they're not sculpting on top of these. You see how they blend in nicely? And there you go. They blend in because of the morph target. So if I delete that morph target and do the exact same thing, you can see they're trying to push each other's verts all around because they're trying to read the deformed mesh on top of each other. You're doing like 2 or 3 strokes on the same point. When you store a morph target, it's going to look at this cylinder as it is right now. Like this is the state it's going to look at, meaning that you can clip parts of that stroke and blend them nicely. So something like,
that's really
that,
cool
for
too.
example. See that?
Yeah.
And now you have an ornament, or the opposite. You can even cut it in like that.
Yeah.
Again, this is how I would do, like if you're doing something like a trim sheet or something, and you want to have an ornamental pattern, just go from one way to the other. I would just, like in that case, I would use wrap mode, but it's the same idea, right? You'd store a morph target, and then as you do that wrap mode thing, if they collide with each other, you won't get that funky like vert deformation. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Somebody asked too with the morph UV, can you do that in menu UV master flatten? And it doesn't quite work the same, which is why we made the morph UV. Yeah, it doesn't quite work the same because it's basically essentially working on a clone and then flattening. There's too many errors with sculpting on it that way. So you want to stick with the morph UV. That's what the morph UV was actually designed for, was to sculpt on it while looking at it. And that's per subtool. So you can have multiple subtools with that kind of pattern. But that radial symmetry that Rodolfo just showed is also really sick. Yeah, there's like 20 ways to do the same thing, which is really cool.
That's exactly what I love about ZBrush. It's like the way you do things, it's up to you as the artist, right? And it gives you that freedom because, again, coming from fine art, that's part of the thing, that the part of the beauty of making something in fine art, like doing an oil painting or doing a drawing, is regardless of how let's say of how realistic or stylized, or regardless of your style, or let's say regardless of your final output or whatever style or creative expression that you want to give to your artwork at the end result, the process itself is very unique per artist, regardless of your end result. So I could have like 2 realistic artists or classical realism artists drawing in the same model room, and you would see the way they approach the drawing. I wouldn't say the steps per se, like block out first. There's always those rules, and the rules are meant to be bent, but not to be broken in a sense, right? So you want to stretch them out, but there are certain rules, like you start big forms, then smaller forms gradually. You never go like details first and then, but at the same vein, you look at the way they sharpen their pencil, if they use charcoal, how they prepare the canvas, which pigments they use. But you know what I mean? Like, even though they're trying to achieve the same goal, the way they do it is very unique just because they're different people, right? And this is one of the things that I love about ZBrush, because it gives you that feeling of actually being a fine artist, and you have your own process, your own workflow, and then you customize it to fit your needs and to fit your, let's call it artist mantra or artistic mantra, like your own mantra while you're sculpting, right? And this is really, really cool. This is one of my favorite things about ZBrush. One of the reasons I fell in love with it, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's super sick, man. Yup. So there we go. So we got so we definitely have a block out that's happening. So yeah. Now you guys know where we're going with this all.
Yeah. Now let's do something here. Let's do a little test. Just a little test. Even though this rock is still too detailed for my taste, right? It doesn't look like it should. That's also probably because do what I say, not what I do, kids. I've been sculpting on one side because I was focused on the whole alpha thing, and then I look at this side and it's in a different stage altogether. Like, whatever. But yeah, so one of the things that eventually I'm going to start doing is something that might allude to what we're going to do as a group. So I don't know.
Nice. As you do that, somebody just came into the chat, so welcome in. I need to ask how to wrap another object like the frog is wrapped on this on the sphere. So basically what so basically talking about something like this in general,
Right.
how to wrap it and stuff like that. Well, this one was posed to fit this, And then fun little fact on this, actually, if we solo the frog out, it's actually cut. It was cut
Yeah.
to fit, which
Yeah.
is how they wrapped it. However, there's a few ways you can go about wrapping something. And one of the things that I rely on a lot, let's say we want to wrap, a plain 3D to this sphere. Like let's pretend this is like a logo of some sort, right? Just for like a small second. So we're gonna hide this frog here. We'll hide the eyes too. Okay. So let's say we want to wrap this or have this wrap around something. One of my favorite ways to do this is actually via a brush. So it's actually called Matchmaker. So if you go B for brush and then M, and then from there, we're going to find it. It's M again for Matchmaker. What this really does, now this is based on how many vertices you absolutely have. But the thing here is that when you go ahead and just make sure that you have enough space, you don't want this to be intersecting in any way on the object. You want it to be in front of the object, but not necessarily touching it. Okay. So, and then you go ahead and you say, like, okay, once you position it, then you literally just draw straight down. And what it will do is it will recognize the shape of it. Now, see, this is really like this intensity was really harsh. So we didn't need to go that high. So you can lower the intensity, which I recommend. So something like 32. And so now here you can come through, you can make a few strokes, and that's going to go ahead and match that shape. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is actually called ZProject. And what ZProject will do is as I paint on the actual subtool, it's going to recognize all underlining subtools and it's going to paint that, right? It's going to now push it to what it sees, so what is visible. So for example, let's turn the froggy back on and let's reposition this here in front of the frog in the hand. Say something like this. Now I'm going to start painting. I'm going to move it around, right? Can smooth some stuff down, paint that down. Now, of course, this is also topology based. So let me actually find a better angle. With a brush like this, you kind of want to hit it from all different angles. So you want to kind of finesse it a little bit. So here it's kind of like clipping on that part, but that's okay because again, the idea here, we could subdivide to get better resolution, paint this down. There you go. Subdivide one more time, paint this down, subdivide one more time, paint this down. Right now, if I solo this, there you go. I got a true painted, wrapped texture on top of that hand. And that's what I was looking for. I use this all the time in toys, especially for key cutting. Like I'm thinking about putting together an articulation stream because it's been asked a few times. But this is one of the things where you actually, in the toy world, you need to preserve the silhouette and shape of the toy, but you need to cut it and then you have to put in the articulation keys to make sure that it all fits, right? But you cannot change the key whatsoever. The key is mechanically engineered to fit correctly. So you can never change the key, but you can move the sculpt to it. So sometimes the trick is, for example, like let's go back to this Rocky character. And let's say I wanted to add a key right in the arm socket, right? Like a ball and socket joint or like a hinge joint. So let's just assume, boom, I put this here. This is my key example, right? So let's say I fit the key. There it is. It's in place, but I need this to still look like the actual model. So I can't really mess with this necessarily, right? So I need to put this in a way that's like, okay, great. But what I can do is the very top of the key where it's just, it's just being cut. Then I can absolutely come in and project some of that detail onto that object. So then it would look something like this. So now all those details are being pushed here onto that object. Again, I can't mess with the mechanical side of it, but a lot of times what will happen is the key will be embedded and the part that's sticking out, we would then merge that. We would like then use Z project to project the details of the arm onto the top part of it. And then that way it just all looks like the right thing. So there's things that you would do to help preserve the sculpture as much as possible. So Z project is another great way of doing that. Hope that helped. Sweet. All right, we need to start merging things together and kind of welding it and cleaning it up, but
yeah, we do.
there we go.
All right, let me try something here real quick then.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely welcome. All right. All right. And of course, the feet are kind of like, or the toes rather, kind of have like this little, they like do this cool thing. They kind of like balloon out a little bit. We'll have to put the webbing in here in a second because they got webbing. There we go. That's cool. There we go. All right. So we can get the webbing in here. The webbing's actually pretty simple to do. One of my favorite ways to do it. So let's just solo this out and get the feet looking good. And then we just want to look at the feet for a second and kind of see how the webbing looks. So again, if we take a look at, oh, here's a good example. Has like little webbings. They just kind of kick in, in between each of the joints. So what we're going to do with that, an easy way to get that is actually go to the masking and then go to what I do mesh project or mesh extrude. And then from there, you start with inside the model. You don't start from out here because that just masks off. So you start from inside the model, and then you kind of do a little bit of a mask and then let go. And then it gives you some of that webbing. And then we can come through here. We can come in and do that. And then we can do it one more time. Say something like that. Control Z. There you go. Something like that. And then from here, I'm just going to go ahead and Control Shift A, mask that off. And then we can bring that in and we can fit this to the model. Smooth that down. Look at it from up here. You just kind of move it around. There we go. We'll make that all one mesh. So we're just going to shove that in there so it intersects correctly. There we go. And merge that, and that'll dynamesh. There we go. And then we want to kind of carve in between the bones where that would be to give the resemblance that there's anatomy there, that there's a skeleton underneath. Super important. And then we can add a little bit of knuckles too. There we go. I'm going to smooth that down a little bit. Knuckles. Bam. Dunzo. All right, let's get the arms welded in.
Actually, going to do a try parts for this.
Ooh, this is a cool one. I could take this question too. Is ZBrush recommended for converting from high to low poly and preserving some detail for baking? So ZBrush officially is actually designed for getting sculptable topology, but ZBrush is not ideal for just like the high and low poly workflow, so to speak, because you actually want to retopologize it for proper deformation, especially for characters. Now, if you're doing hard surface things, then ZBrush actually could be a really useful tool for that because most hard surface things don't deform. So, but still, depending on what workflow you're working in, if you're going into games, then poly, the vertice count optimization is really important versus an animation for film or whatnot. So if you're doing about like film animation, that's going to be different, and you definitely need to manually retopologize for that and get things cleaned up. Where games workflow is slightly different for, again, optimization of your mesh. Either way, like typically ZBrush was more designed for having nice clean topology for sculpting, because you need clean topology for sculpting. You can't it matters in the sense of like in the sense of like, you know, if you're trying to sculpt on a pole, then it's just going to balloon to that point and it's going to look really nasty, and that's not going to be it's not going to be beneficial to you whatsoever. So there's the ZBrush was more designed to get out of Dynamesh and kind of more have something that is manageable, rather than having to just go in and manually retopologize it. Now, that all being said, I will be the devil's advocate of my own argument. I have, in a couple professional projects, have used ZBrush, but I don't recommend it because it's not controllable. You're literally just ZBrushing and hoping for the best results. While you can do a few settings, for example, if I wanted to ZBrush this guy as a quick example, so I'm just going to duplicate him real fast. I'm going to go ahead and just weld him together. So we're solo here. Boom, 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 boom. So like I could absolutely use ZBrush to get something that's pretty good, right? So I could come in here and say like, oh, you know what? I need topology right here. So I'm going to use my poly groups to get me some decent loops here. And then I'm going to use my poly groups and get some decent loops here. Give me a different poly group because that looks gross. There we go. Perfect. As an example, like I could do something like this. And then we can come through, and even with these settings, again, it's not controllable, but it can get me somewhere close, right? So I can go to ZBrush, I can say keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, adaptive size down to like 2, and then I can hit ZBrush and I'm have symmetry turned on. And this might give me something that's usable, but I mean, like, see, that's not enough polygons to actually support this. That's why you get this breaking here. So it's not enough polygons to support what I did. So I'm going to need to start higher, try it again. Manual retopology is still king for a reason. You get controllable workflows, you get controllable edge loops, you get everything is controllable, and it's a lot easier to make sure that the rigging team and animation team is going to properly rig it and weight paint it so that it responds correctly. So at the end of the day, if you're just doing a project that's not going to be animated, then ZBrush is fine. It will work for you. In a professional workflow setting, it's manual retopology is king, and it's king for a reason. So, and if you watch the summit, then you'll know we have some really cool tools coming.
Yeah, we do. Oh, Jesus. There's something wrong with my tripart brush. I don't know what it is, but it's just not generating the triparts. That's interesting.
Good job, buddy. Break it. Break it.
Break it.
Break it.
Curve mode is on. Movability. There we go.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if A-Cube is still in here, but did you see what A-Cube did with their sculpt off entry?
Yeah, I saw that. I shared it on Instagram.
Yeah, dope.
That was crazy. That looked amazing.
Yeah, that was really awesome. Really awesome, A-Cube. If you guys don't know, go check her out. Also another ZBrush Live artist, but also an amazing person.
Oh, wow. It's just not working. It's not giving me a tripart brush. There must be something I'm missing here.
Okay. We need to cut this. We don't need this much arm in here. I'm not doing the hands for this statue.
So
here we go.
Not working. Let's see. I can chain width. Let's see. Yeah, this one's working. It's triparts on. Curve mode, bend start. Everything's the same. Huh. Interesting. Let's reverse engineer this. Right. Which is exactly what I had. 3 polygroups, right? That's it. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Indubitably.
Indubitably. I love that meme. Actually,
Indubitably. You know that's a guy from Grand Theft Auto Online.
oh yeah.
You know that there's a guy that goes like RP, like Grand Theft Auto RP, like role play. Yeah.
Yep.
There's a guy that just walked around and he's supposed to be a lawyer in the game, but he's just walking around following and trolling cheaters. and then he's supposedly a lawyer, and then he goes and gets them and takes them to the police station and stuff and game, and he speaks like that, and he is always like, yes, indubitably. He's trolling them. It's just so funny. Oh my god, I randomly came across those videos and I was like, wow, this is freaking funny.
That is funny. I like it. Okay, let's go ahead and split it in. Okay.
Oh, now it's working. What the heck?
Did you get it?
Yeah, I don't know what. Now, on this brush, if I just append it on this brush, it's working. There's some setting that I'm missing here, for sure. There has to be a setting here that I'm missing. But everything is the same. Oh, well, doesn't matter. Spent too much time already over here. So let's do this. Curve functions. Polygroups.
Sensor. It's good. Let's put some thickness on this guy.
Okay. There might be something with my session here, which probably means it's a good time for me to save.
Oh, yeah, you absolutely should be saving. I highly recommend you saving, my friend.
Yep.
All right, wow, I gave this frog like a massive rib cage. So we need to, now he's welded together, we need to reshape him a little bit.
It's not framing that mesh. So I'm trying to frame this by polygroup. Yeah, this is
Boulder shoulders?
Yeah.
He works
I'm trying to, probably I'm going to have to zero mesh. There's something on the mesh that's not, I hope it's on the mesh. There's not a, but keep on smooth groups down to 0.1. Let's do half adaptive size turned off, and there we go. There you go. I knew it. There's something in a mesh.
You knew it?
I knew it. Fix mesh.
There we go.
Does it work now? Let's just check.
Sometimes it just
no.
a little finesse.
Oh,
this is a question for you, buddy.
For me?
Yeah, I love it. Love the questions, by the way, guys. So how can I approach detailing in ZBrush like cracks and damages, or just removing the CG look? Often feels like I'm doing things randomly and feel a bit clueless without any control.
Right. So here's the thing about damage and wear and tear. It depends on what surface you're sculpting on. If you're doing metal, it's one thing. If you're doing wood, it would be different. I can show you a few workflows. Let me just wait for this ZRemesh to go. But like, for example, if you're doing wood, let's say you're doing damage, right? So this is the thing, like damage and cracks and whatever should come at the end stage of whatever you're sculpting, right? That's like the last thing. First of all, you need to get your forms right. You need to get your shapes correctly and the design. the shape working. And once you have that, then you're into the phase where you're doing cracks and whatever, and that's just a natural evolution of your sculpting process. It's not going to be, you shouldn't feel like you're all over the place when you're doing damage, right? I understand that maybe because damage, if you start just doing random damage, it might look like you're kind of lost on what you should be doing. And damage and wear and tear, specifically for environment art and for props or whatever, is literally where you tell the story with the props, right? That's exactly what you do. You do it in the damage and wear and tear and in the texturing. And that's how you tell the story of the prop, right? And in environment. So what I would do, if you go over here, let's do another cube 3D. I'm just, filling my tool palette with cubes all over the place, but whatever. So let me just do a little bit of let me actually go through with
Yeah, and
dynamic.
actually to that point where you're setting that up, when you're thinking about damaging something, kind of create a reason as to why. For
Exactly.
example, let's say there's a chip that's like cut out of a table, right? Then, maybe think, oh, dude, this guy was like pissed off playing video games and slammed his controller and it chipped the table. Like, then now you can kind of think about, like, well, the controller might have a sharp edge, and then it was like it dug in at a corner, which will then dig in deeper. Like, you want to think of a reason as to why that damage would be there. If it's like armor, then obviously armor is protecting you from battling. Well, what kind of armor was it intended? Is it modern warfare armor where it's like, these plates in there that are supposed to stop a bullet? Or is it like medieval times where they're fighting with swords? Because then the damage of impact between a blade versus a blunt object, it can be very different. So it's like, did he get hit with a mallet? Did he get hit with a dagger? Did he get hit with an axe? Those are things you want to think about, so then you don't feel lost. So like Rodolfo said, it's a storytelling method. So think about the reasons of why that scratch or that damage might be there in the first place. And that will help you out a lot too.
Yep, 100%. So let's say we have a wood plank here, right? Imagine this is a wood. I'm not going to sculpt the entire wood plank here, but the idea is that, okay, you have some grain. Let me just at least give it some allusion to grain, like the wood grain. So let's say you have something like this coming up with a surface, like that, and then you keep sculpting that. Let's say you do have like this wood plank here. Whoops. And if you want to do this, like let's say that edge damage or whatever, there's a little technique that I usually use when it comes to this. Well, here's the thing. For video games, you wouldn't even do this here, right? Maybe you would if you're doing like a unique prop or something that's like a hero prop or something. But if you're actually planning on doing like a modular wood plank, you would never do damage here. You'd use an atlas or an atlas with a trim. And then the atlas, you'd have the caps of the wood planks where just basically on your low poly, you move the shell of your UVs on top of that atlas. And you can sculpt that here. But if you're actually sculpting this for 3D printing, for example, then obviously you need to actually sculpt everything, right? You need to sculpt the detail, including the wear and tear and the damage. And this goes to show that regardless of what you're using this for, like for games or film or 3D printing, the principle stands that damage, wear and tear, and texturing is where you tell the story with the environment, because you can tell a story without characters, right? You can have an environment that tells a story. You can have a scene that tells a story. Like you see in movies, sometimes you see like shots that do convey some sort of narrative behind like what's happening on the screen. And that comes through in the color, the texturing, and the details, the wear, the damage, some blood splatters. That's the most generic student thing that that I see all the time. Like whenever you want to tell a story and you just see like blood to tell the story, that's the most obvious thing, right? That you see in a piece, right? But for this, what I would usually do is I would either use thick skin. I can use thick skin for this. And before I even turn on thick skin, I like to turn on a morph target, just store a morph target here. And with thick skin, I'm going to go over and maybe use either my layer brush, which just does this, right? It's just a layer. But since we're using thick skin, I can use the clay buildup brush and just start chipping away. Maybe let's do a little bit more. And we can start chipping away. And you can see how we can get away with a lot of that detail. And because we have thick skin, it's never gonna go over a certain threshold, right? So then you can start damaging this to your heart's content, let's say. Maybe even if you turn off thick skin and we go over and start doing stuff like this, you know, and then maybe go with a mallet brush and just start chipping away at those edges like that. Maybe the mallet fast one, and start chipping away at that. Well, what's going on? Let me turn off lazy mouse here real quick. Right, and we're starting to do a little bit of these, and we get a lot of this weirdness happening over here. That doesn't matter, because then we can come over with an H polish brush and just start softening up that a little bit. Go to clay buildup, start sculpting those grains in. So let's say like this is, obviously this is very, very quick and dirty. Well, let's say we're doing some damage here, right? And we're actually trying to convey that this has been here for a while. So you would probably need to actually go over here, maybe with a clip curve brush, and start chipping away sections of that. Well, it doesn't work like I wanted. So let me just delete lower. It's not working. That's interesting. There we go. Start chipping away at pieces of that wood, right? And then as you do this, you want to start carving in that, right? So maybe we want to dynamesh this or whatever. But my point is that now, because we have a morph target, again, if you want to start dynameshing, you're going to get rid of your morph target anyway. So you want to be able to do something like this, like go in with a morph brush and morph some of those details back to certain sections. So if we go with a focal shift that's like super high, or actually super low, we can start having those edges, like those very sharp edges for that wood grain. See that? This is how I would start sculpting in my damage. Look, first I do like a major like damage pass, because I have layers and morph targets, and that ability, that non-destructive ability in ZBrush, allows me to just then tone it down a little bit. And that's what I usually do. Like I just do it like I go full on Super Saiyan Goku, destroying everything, right? But then here comes, I don't know, the Dragon Balls or whatever. And you just wish it back, right? But you wish it a little bit at a time, right? So you start maybe going with a morph brush, doing stuff like this. You can also just use some surface noise, right? You can use some surface noise over there. So we can start toning it down here, for example. Let's do, I'm not going to pick an alpha. I'm just going to use a plugin real quick so you guys can see. So I'm going to go to the wood pattern, and I'm going to check it out first to see what I'm getting. So mix to 0, increase that strength. And then I want to change this angle. And then I want to edit this noise a little bit more octaves, a lot of that amplitude. And you can see that edge is what we're aiming for. See that edge over there? That's exactly what we're aiming for over there. So let me do maybe a little bit higher frequency. This, maybe not as much, maybe just that. There we go. Now we can even start stretching this, not offset, sorry, the scale. We can start scaling this down on the X to get a little bit of that illusion that, you know, it's grain, and when it's not, it's just a procedural noise, right? So we're going to go over here, scale this down a little bit, maybe do something like that. I don't know. The idea is that once you get something that you like and you apply this surface noise, right, you can always tone it back down. And so the idea, if I go to the surface noise, there we go, click apply to mesh, we get that. That is what we want to give this layered idea to the wood plank, right? So now, because we have a morph target and we haven't changed our topology, we can morph it back everywhere else, right? Just go over it like that. Or maybe just go over it a little bit. Or maybe with this, just go color spray with a morph brush and just go a little crazy with color spray.
I'm going to zoom in on you for a bit. There you go.
Like that. And now, once we get to that edge, I want to have a little bit more control. So I want to go over here and maybe do focal shift to -100. And we want to start making sure that we have just that edge, right? We can smooth it out, right? When we start getting that basically that layer, right? Where you find, like when you chip off or you break a wooden plank, there's going to be sections that are going to be layered on top of each other, and that's it. So this is sort of like on a case-by-case scenario, right? If you're doing damage to like a metal surface, or if you're doing damage to, like, I don't know, again, let's say a rock. So let's say a statue or something. Let's say you're doing like some sort of statue that's a rocky material. Let me just go and Control D this and project details, and just in case I lose my project that history. Am I lagging?
Huh?
Am I lagging? No.
No, you're good.
Okay. So let's say you want to add something over here. So you want to, I don't know, have some cracks, and you have that. Like if you have the XMD toolbox, for example, you have a bunch of those, and you can tweak those. But if you want to make your own, you can just start with a plane. Let's say plane 3D, right? Make polymesh 3D. You want to make your own, let's say, library of like cracks and stuff, and you want to start by painting a mask, right? So this is, I don't know, this is just one workflow again. And works for whatever works for you, but I just divide this a bunch of times until I get to at least 1 million. And then with my mask pen brush, I just start designing, I don't know, like a shape like that, right? And then I want to design something like this, and I'm just doing a random shape. And let's say I want to do irradiating from the center, like, and we want to do a little bit of some cracks over here. So you're just painting, basically. You could use the paintbrush as well and then mask by intensity, right? That could also be a thing. But in this case, I just want to make sure that I have like the most basic shape. Let's say, again, this is like, Goku landing. This is like a crater. So you're going to go like this. I don't know, like doing something. Try to find a nice little, like trying to subdivide this into different sections, right? So if you have something like this, and let's say now you want to sharpen this up, but before you sharpen this up, actually, let me just make this a little bolder, because we want to make sure that we have some thickness on this mask, right? And the more you're in the center, the thicker it should be. Like you should have something like this, something like this, something like this, something like this. This is probably a little too much, but you see the point, right? You're just designing the shape of the crack or whatever that you're doing. And I would spend more time on this, but time's limited, and you only have one life. So so then you go over here, and then under masking, you have the ability to dilute your mask. So I'm going to blur it once and then dilute. Where's the dilute? Dang it. Where's dilute? There it is. Dilute mask, right? And in theory, actually, we sharpen this up and then dilute the mask. So this should be, let's say, your cracks or whatever. And then what you want to do is invert that, and we want to go to deformation, and we want to start deflating down, something like that. Now we're going to start sculpting. Actually, let me deflate with balloon like that, but not that much, just a little bit like that, right? And now one of the cool things that I like to do on top of this is actually I want to mask the border, because again, we don't want to change that for now. And let's go over here to masking, mask by feature, mask border. And then let me go up my subdivisions again. And now I can sculpt freely on this, right? I can sculpt my cracks. I can do whatever, right? Actually, I made a mistake. I should have stored a morph target before I did all of this. So let me go back. Actually,
there you.
let me go back here, and I'm gonna actually assign some color. And this is something, if you, let's say again, I forgot to assign a morph target, and you're like, oh no, now I need to sculpt all of this again. So what I usually do is I use poly paint to my advantage. So I have these colors here. So I'm gonna fill in the object with, actually I have to have RGB on. I'm gonna fill in the object, and then I'm gonna flip that mask, flip that color, and there you go. And now we have that, right? Which is basically poly painted black and white mask. So I can now store a morph target because there's nothing here, right? If you turn off poly paint, this is just a, a flat plane. See that? It's just a flat plane with nothing. If I turn on poly paint, I have this. So I can now go back and store my morph target. And now I can go by go to masking and go mask by color, mask by intensity. And now if I turn off my poly paint, there's my mask again, right? So now I have a morph target and I have my mask, which means that I can go back here to deformation. Where's deformation? There it is. And inflate that again. Whoops. Why? Why is it not working? Why are you not working for me? Let me just inflate that a little bit. And then inflate balloon. Oh, Christ. Just do a little bit. There we go. That's
in the mind of Rodolfo.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's probably, the mask is not sharp enough. I would have to sharpen it up a little bit more. But that's besides the point. What I want to do now is I want to start sculpting this. So I'm going to go to cracks and I'm going to start emphasizing this a little bit. So I can go like that, just all over. Press one key, and then like that, like that. And remember, guys, I have a morph target, meaning that whatever stroke I'm doing, it's still looking at that morph target. So the distance is going to be the same, especially if I have something like lazy mouse, and I'm taking advantage of that. So you can see it's never going to give you weirdness when you overlap the strokes. I'm going to do something like that, something like this. And you can see where I'm going with this. Like, it started off as a very ugly kind of looking mask. Oops, that's probably a little too much. So there we go. Something like this, like that. So let's say this is your, I don't know, your destruction or whatever. And now I want to maybe mask this section off over here. And maybe flip that, and maybe I want to scale this down a little bit. So now we have this sort of going. And now we can start going with the mallet brush, start carving away at those edges. It's still a plane, and you're guessing what I'm going with this. I'm going to make an alpha, like a VDM brush in a sense, a multi-alpha brush, just with this, and then you can just drag and drop on your surface. And this is what I would do. Actually, this is part of what I'm doing for the rock anyway, so it's a good tangent. It's not really a tangent, or I'm just trying to get away with it.
You're just trying to get away with it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get away with it.
Awesome with it. All right, dude. We've been streaming for a couple hours now. You realize that?
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, when you're having fun, you're having fun.
Yeah.
Well, here, let's do a quick check-in just to see where we're at with it. So, dude, that damage looks sick, though, brother.
Well, thank you. You felt it, right? You felt my inner critic, my imposter syndrome coming on.
Dude,
I just shut it down immediately. I was like, no, thank you. I just thank him.
Yep, 100%. All right, so
here's the rock.
Yeah, let's look at your rock. Go ahead. Where are you at?
So this is the rock. Trying to stylize it a little bit more and trying to get some chains around it. Because again, as someone guessed it in the chat, this is going to be a rock hanging like a punching bag, and rocky frog punching it. A rocky frog punching a rock. That's the whole point, right? And then again, some chains is going to be hanging, and there's going to have something over here where it alludes to being punched repeatedly, right? So like some cracks, some wear and tear, right? And again, some cracks because we're thinking this frog is like, I don't know, a Saiyan frog or something like that. Like he's super strong. He's not just your regular everyday frog that punches you and don't feel it. He's an actual Saiyan frog that can transform at any second. If he gets angry, as his best friend is killed in front of him,
Yeah,
so you never know. So it's gonna have a crack somewhere where we decide where the frog is punching it, and then maybe using some live booleans as well to actually indent the surface, create some damage, and that's it. That's basically it. See, guys, it's easy.
Love it. Yeah, here I was actually just working on the feet a little bit, but so this is still, to me, this is still a block out. So this is still getting the feel of him. It's very rough right now, but if we were to just go ahead and take a look at the overall 360 view of him, here's the front, sides, and back and stuff. The idea was I wanted to make sure that it reads frog as much as possible, but there's still some like body language here that we can play with. But something that I've been really trying to pay attention to more in my sculptures is actually bridgemen. Pardon me, is actually bridgemen. So if you guys don't know bridgemen, like real quick, bridge. Let's see if I can spell correctly. Bridgeman drawing. What's really cool about this? There we go. Yeah, see, you just spell incorrectly and then you get it. What's really cool about bridgeman artwork is actually not about any of the details whatsoever, but it's about the shape language and the silhouette and how that transfers when you're doing any type of block out. And in traditional sculpture, actually, I own this book. This is a great book by George Bridgman. What's really good about this is, again, is just playing with those planes and those shapes. So same thing here. Okay, we're auto-saving. Same thing here. I wanted to make sure that certain things read. So I wanted to make sure that, again, that transition we talked about is actually coming through on the side of the frog. The arms themselves are actually kind of, you have nice plane changes that are coming through, and that when I look at it from afar, if I look at the silhouette, right, I get the sense that this could be what it is.
Yep.
Pardon me. So yeah, and even something like this too, like he's too far leaning forward right now. He's very like he's doing the Michael Jackson at this point. So we don't.
Oh, that would be sick. Let's put a hat on it.
So with something like this too, when we're looking at these forms, we do want to make sure that we kind of change a few things. This is where Transpose Master comes in. And actually with this, he's currently in Dynamesh. So this is too dense for Transpose Master. So if I were to just quickly go to proxy pose,
there we go.
Give him a proxy cage, right? This reduces this mesh down to 4.6%. So this is now just 21,000 vertices instead of almost 1 million. So now here, what I could do is let's just move everything over to T-pose mesh. Great, perfect. And then from here, let's go ahead and let's just look at this right here. And of course, actually, let's turn on symmetry. Let's go ahead and kind of get the base shape that we need to. Let's arch him back a little bit. So let's put the point where we need to and kind of arch him back just a teeny bit. Can also arch him back this way. There we go. So, oops, we can invert that mask, kind of come forward a little bit or come back a little bit here. Now he's standing a little too tall. So here we can go ahead and just reposition his head a little bit. Here we go. We can kind of move this around and get something maybe a little bit more here. Also, too, the way the body moves, with the rib cage, which body just doesn't move on one spot. It actually has multiple points of contact as your body moves. So we can play with that too, right? So we can make sure that we just don't only move at, quote, the hip part, but we can move, a little bit more this way. So it's really nice to kind of just play around, find like something that's halfway decent. There we go. Say something like this. Yeah, cool. So maybe he's a little bit more upright. His arms are a little too far forward. I'm not rigging him, so I don't really care too much about where the arms are going to be, but we can drop him down just a little bit, make it a little bit more A-posed. I did want to roll them forward because Frog's arms are a little bit more in front of them. They're not like on the side like a human would be. So to keep the kind of authenticity of a frog anatomy, we're going to put them a little bit more in front. So what's cool about that, and this is sculptable too, you could sculpt on this, but I tried to avoid too much sculpting when I'm in T-pose mesh. But now my shoulders are coming forward a little bit more. So if we were to send this back, there we go, beautiful. And then with proxy pose, you can sculpt in it. So I can actually blow up his shoulders a little bit more. There we go. He's a boxer, so he's going to have some crazy shoulders because he's doing a lot of punching. So we can blow that up. And actually what's cool is, so his lats and his shoulders, his forearms, these are going to be big landmarks for any type of fighter, especially a boxer, right? Because there's a lot of punching muscles in your lats. So you want to be able to kind of blow that up just a little bit. So you can sculpt in that, which gives you a nice, more rounded thing. So now we have a little bit more of a better kind of neutral pose. Again, if he was rigging, I'd do it a little bit more asymmetrically, but he's not. Like, we're going to end up chopping him up and posing him and stuff like that. But here we go. This is kind of where I'm at right now. And I like how he's turning out for a couple hours. I'm digging it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking pretty good.
Pretty cool.
Sweet.
Coolio. Oh, this is me. That's a stat pick.
Nice. But yeah, I would say I'd say it's about ready to wrap up, unfortunately. But this has been a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys have dug this. So here's the plan. I'm gonna go full screen real quick. Boop, 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 boop. Here we go. Bam, transition just like that. So the plan with this statue is that Rodolfo and I will finish it. We'll see if maybe we could do another stream. If there's time in December, we can try to do another stream. But this would be something to kind of finish, put together. And I mentioned it earlier, so it kind of I just thought about it. But yeah, this might be one that we end up giving away. So, you guys will be able to download it, no problem, when it's finished. So yeah, this is looking pretty good, dude. And I like what you did with the rock because it has that kind of a bag feel, the way it's flowing.
Yeah,
which is pretty nice.
That was the point, right? That section over here is where it will be punched repeatedly.
Yeah,
like it's punching, and then you have that C curve, right?
Yeah,
to emphasize the force of it. Yeah.
No, it looks
still
good.
Looks a little bit like bark for some reason. I don't know. I don't know. It might be I'm being too critical.
Dude, but I think it looks good, man. I think it looks great. So anyway, that's going to go to wrap it up for this stream, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Rodolfo, this has always been fun, man, doing streams with you.
Yeah, we should do this more often for sure.
Definitely.
100%. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and enjoying, having fun with us. And this is Rodolfo and Ian Robinson.
Hold on. Check this
out. Hold on.
This is Rodolfo Silva.
Oh, there we go. You have the graphics.
Yeah.
And Ian Robinson.
This was the setting for the summit that we did. But yeah. Anyway, chat, this has been fun. Thank you guys so much. Glad you guys had fun with it. And always too, this is what we do. We both work at ZBrush. We both are trainers, and so we try to help with as much knowledge as possible. But yeah. Anyway, guys, that's it. Have fun. Enjoy the rest of your week. If you're in the States, enjoy Turkey Day and have a great time. And we'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Oh, yeah. Let's go full screen. Hold on. Let's do it. Hold on.
Bye.
All right, bye, guys.